My camera's not even.
Good evening, and welcome to our last of our series of debates with our social problems class and students that hosted here at Southwestern Community College. And I want to express my own appreciation to them for the hard work they've done in preparing and done such a good job in helping us learn about the views of our candidates. They have done all the work. They've investigated issues relative to North Carolina and the western part of the state and have chosen questions they wish to ask, and will be the ones who also ask the questions. Just how we're going to conduct the debate tonight. We will open with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. We will then proceed to our questions. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then 1 minute for rebuttal with each other. And then at the end of the debate, we'll give them each 2 minutes for a closing statement. When we're done, there are light refreshments in the lobby. You're welcome to stop and have something to drink and cookie, and give us a chance for the candidates also to converse with you out in the lobby. Now, we'll ask you to please refrain from expressing your approval or disapproval for the candidates and their points of view. We're here to learn and to hear from them. The proper place to express your opinion is in the voting booth. And early voting has begun. I hope many of you have voted already. If not, of course, Tuesday is voting day. So I'm sure both our candidates will be glad when they can finally relax. So thank you for being here with us tonight. And we will begin. And is it? You begin with your opening statement.
Well, first of all, I want to thank folks for being here. I want to thank Southwestern Community College for holding this forum. I want to thank you folks as a class for having interest in public issues. And also the audience, I want to say thank you for being here. And to those wearing blue, thank you. That's my favorite color. I am Jane Hibbs, and I'm running for the North Carolina State Senate. And I hope tonight that you will see the vast differences between me and my opponent. I hope you will see the reason that I need to go to Raleigh to move this state forward. Let me tell you why I'm running for this office. First of all, I'm a mother. I have 3 children. I have 5 grandchildren. So I care very much about the future of this state. And what got me involved with this race was seeing what was happening to our hardworking and our middle-class people, because I felt like that we are bearing the brunt of the changes with the tax reforms, and it's not fair. I'm seeing what I call a reverse Robin Hood, that the millionaires and billionaires are profiting from what's been happening in the General Assembly, and it's putting a burden on our taxpayer, on our middle class and hardworking people. And I feel like something needs to be done about that. And that's why I want to go to Raleigh, to make that change, to look after our people. I'm a person who has 38 years in public school education. And I saw the public schools just falling through the tubes. I saw things eroding. I saw us circling the drain. And I have worked hard and have worked hard and continue to work hard for public school education. And I can't afford to see that happening, to see what my grandchildren have right now, because they don't have textbooks that match the curriculum. And it's a real problem. Another reason that I'm running is because I'm tapped into this economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I also would like to thank SCC and Dr. Dan for hosting this debate, and for your students. I'm especially glad to be here to address your concerns that you have, because you are the future of the state. Thankful for those people that attended. I'm running for the state senate to continue the work that we've done. We inherited a broken state. Our budget was broken. We had a significant budget deficit. We got problems in just about every component of our state government having to do with the revenue that we're getting. And I was very proud to be down there, to be elected in 2010, and be part of the solution. And we have made headway. We have made progress in about every component of state government, and I'm very proud of that. And I appreciate your being here, and I look forward to, I agree with Ms. Evans. There are significant differences between the two of us, and I look forward to addressing those at this time. So let the games begin.
Our first question will be asked by Ken. And Ms. Hitt, you go first.
Good evening. Do you think it's appropriate for the state to require all local communities to accept fracking, or should local communities be allowed to decide for themselves about whether to want fracking in their country?
Well, I brought a copy of the fracking bill with me tonight. This is called the Energy Modernization Act, but it says nothing about solar energy or about wind energy, about inductive batteries. It says nothing about that. But you know, on page 14, it does mention that the local governments don't have any control over what happens with fracking. And I don't think that's right. I think that we need to, as local governments, we need to be responsible for our air quality and our water. And we don't need to have people coming in and saying what's going to be done to our region. We have a beautiful region here. We have a lot of tourism. We have lovely mountains. Fracking may not take place here, but we're in the bill. There's 100 counties. There's not 97. There's 100. And what we're seeing with the history of fracking and the studying of fracking is there's a lot of problems with that. There's a Yale study that showed that people who are living close to the fracking wells are having skin lesions. They're having respiratory problems. There's a study that's done in Colorado showing closer that a pregnant woman lives to a fracking site, the greater the chance that her child will have congenital heart defects. So we need to have our local rights, not only in fracking, but in when we have our school calendars, things that we need to have control over that we don't need the state government telling us. We do need to keep our air and water within the boundaries of the environmental regulations. In fact, we need tighter regulations because they've been taken away. They're not as strong as they used to be. Thanks for your question. Great question.
Thank you. I come from a background of local government. I was a Macon County Commissioner for 10 years before seeking the office of State Senator in the 50th District. I'm a strong, extremely strong proponent of local control. And unfortunately for local government, North Carolina is a Dillon's Rules state. And what Dillon's Rules means is that local government only gets its power from the state government. And so every municipality, every county, their charter is there at the pleasure of the state government. So our state has been designed so that the control comes from Raleigh. Now, I resent a lot of that. I resented a lot of it as a county commissioner. And as a matter of fact, I was such a strong proponent of local government, I was able to receive an award that's given to one legislator out of the 170. I got the Friends of the County Award. And I was very proud to get that, especially from my background. I got that last year. And I have that award and displayed in my office, and I take great pride in it. But the bottom line with some issues like hydraulic fracturing is that the county governments do not have the resources to deal with these issues. Now, having said that, this Energy Modernization Act has to do with hydraulic fracturing. And it's fracturing of shale rock. There is no shale rock in western North Carolina. That's known. And so the likelihood that we're going to have hydraulic fracturing in western North Carolina is extremely remote. Having said that, hydraulic fracturing has been proven to be safe.
Please refrain from comment, please.
I would refer you, if we want to get into that discussion, I would refer you to a Duke University study. You just do internet search on Duke University and fracking. It's a research paper that four Duke University professors had, and in addition to a University of Rochester professor. And you Google that and take a look at that and see what they've done. I would refer you to documented research.
Is it 1 minute rebuttal?
You know, many of our local governments have said that they are against fracking. Haywood County has said that. I think Franklin has put in a resolution. Also, I was talking with the Cherokee Tribal Council, and one of the things that the Cherokees talk about is looking for 7 generations as to the impact of what they do. And I like that. Think about what fracking would do over 7 generations. One of the things that happens is that the cement casings don't last forever. They're going to be porous, and those chemicals can get into the water and into our groundwater. We've got to protect our environment. Thank you.
And for rebuttal?
Yes, there's no documented evidence that the chemicals have gotten into the drinking water. None. There are documented cases where there was an accidental spill from the surface, but when you inject those chemicals down, when you go a mile below the surface, those chemicals don't migrate up. They stay down there. And we know that the chemicals are safe. Most of them contain things that you would find under your kitchen sink. But
Again, please refrain from making comments. We're the candidates, not the audience. Thank you.
As an added thing to that, I would like to quote former Energy Secretary Stephen Chu from Obama's Energy Department. It says that it's a false choice to say that the country can either preserve the environment or acquire cheap natural gas. Former Interior Secretary is quoted as saying, I would say to everybody that hydraulic fracking is safe. He also said that, can I have some extra time before I'm interrupted? Shut up!
Finish your time.
Pardon me?
Finish your time.
Thank you. He also said that fracking was creating an energy revolution in the United States. Current Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz recently praised fracking as a big contributor to our carbon reduction and a huge economic benefit. These are Obama's people. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have our second question from Gabrielle, and Senator Davis, you go first.
Good evening.
Hey, Gabrielle.
Do you believe North Carolina should comply with the expanded eligibility for Medicaid included in the Affordable Care Act? Why or why not?
Not yet. If we were to expand Medicaid at this time, it would be very foolish. Our Medicaid has been the most unpredictable part of the state budget. We have spent since January of 2011, when I took office, our expenses, our spending for Medicaid has increased over $2 billion. It's a program that's out of control. So it would be very foolish. It would be like you, if you want to buy a house, you can't afford the house that you're in, then you're going to buy a bigger house. You think things are going to be better. It's not going to happen. And so we need to get our Medicaid spending under control. Then, once we do that, we can look at the possibility of expanding Medicaid. What scares me about expanding it is the federal government has said that they're going to pay 90% of the expenses of expanding Medicaid, which would increase the Medicaid rolls in North Carolina about 500,000 to 700,000 people. That'd be over $1 billion for our part. And so our first responsibility is to make sure we get control of the present program before we consider expanding.
Well, I'm definitely in favor of expanding Medicaid. This would help 500,000 of our people. It would bring in $4.9 million every day. A couple of months ago, we had lost $1.3 billion to this state. We talk about lacking jobs. This would have brought in between 23 and 27,000 jobs. That could have given some of you students jobs in health care or can in the future. One of the reasons that Medicaid was set aside by this state and not accepted, the people in Raleigh said, well, we can't afford that. The federal government's in too great of debt. But you know, they took money to build a bridge in Charlotte. They took the money to build a road in Raleigh. So, you know, they were speaking. Has gone to other states. Now, some people say this isn't true, but look at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and you'll find out that indeed they are saying that this is happening. So while our people are getting sicker, people in other states are benefiting from the Medicaid funds that we've turned aside. There are 15,000 people in these 7 counties that do not have Medicaid insurance because of what people did in Raleigh. Does that make you sleep better tonight? It gives me a problem. And sick people are not going to get well on their own. They do need medical insurance. I want to pass the Medicaid bill. They'll do it in the legislature this time anyway. They'll say we did it our way. They'll sing like Frank Sinatra. But it's going to be done because we need it and they see what our state is missing.
Again, please, don't applaud. We want to hear exactly what candidates have to say. Sorry, Senator Davis. Thank you. You can read mine.
I will tell you that if you look at expanding Medicaid, there is some money going to other states that could come here because of a very complicated formula. But it's not the money that we're hearing. And I will remind you that 40 cents of every dollar that our federal government is spending right now is borrowed money. I am old. I'll soon be 68 years old. Before the damage is done to me, I'm going to be dead. I care about everyone here. You're going to be stuck with that debt. And if they're spending $1 and 40 cents out of every dollar is borrowed, who do you think is going to pay that money? It's going to be you and your children and your grandchildren. My passion in my office in the state government is that I want to get our fiscal house in order. And then once we do that, and there's a we're about I think we're about $60 million to the good with Medicaid versus what we had budgeted this year. And so with those numbers, there's a possibility that we will expand Medicaid. But I don't think it's a sure thing.
You have rebuttal.
Okay, I'll say healthy people are productive people. Even this General Assembly in this year cut Medicaid funds from the existing people. They're trying to turn people out of the nursing homes. They're turning aside the people who've been receiving money who are blind. This General Assembly has no conscience. I want to put the Medicaid funds back. I want to look after our people. And that's what I'll do in Raleigh.
Thank you. On to the next question. Ms. Hicks, you will begin on the floor.
State revenue collections are $62 million below the target for the first quarter of the fiscal year. With that in mind, do you think it was a good idea to replace the state's progressive income tax rates with a flat tax of 5.8% on everyone?
I can do that in 1 second. No. And what that has done, that's given money to the millionaires, to the billionaires, to the top 1% of the population in North Carolina. It is leaving the people who make $80,000 or less with more taxes that they're paying. This General Assembly saw what was happening when they got there last summer, that there wasn't revenue, that there was a shortfall. And when this flat tax was considered and taken into account, and that change was made, Governor McCrory said that he would make sure that it wouldn't affect the revenue sources of this state, and it has drastically. And when they saw what was happening, and that they were $600 million in the red or something like that, they cut the tax again, because that was our plan. If they hadn't cut the tax, we would have enough money to fund our schools and our teachers, to give those teachers raises, without taking the money away from the general budget, for planning on the lottery fund being more successful, for taking money from our university system, $76 million. We're in a mess, and what they're doing right now is not sustainable. It's taking this state down the drain. We've got to do better. Other states are looking at us and seeing what's happening in fear and trembling, because North Carolina is on the front of the news, not because of the good things that we're doing, but because of the risks that we're taking, because of the shaky ground that we're on.
If you want to talk about shaky ground, when we went there in the legislature in 2011, we inherited a $2.5 billion budget deficit. Since that time, we have not had a budget deficit because we use responsible budgeting. And if you want to talk about tax rates, North Carolina has come from about the 45th best tax climate to the 14th. And what that means for all of us and for state revenue is the fact that businesses are going to be locating in North Carolina because of the business tax climate. in spite of what some people believe, business does not exist to give revenue to the state. Business exists to make money and to employ people and to provide services. And we in the North Carolina, we have adopted a business tax climate that will spur economic growth. Our unemployment rate has come from 10.4% in January 2011 to 6.7%. Now the whole federal, all nationally, the unemployment rate has come down as well, but none have come down faster or as far as North Carolina. What we're doing is right. And to say that we're taking money away from government, we have increased funding for K-12 education every year. If any of you would like to do some research, I just happen to have the budget numbers right here from 2008 all the way to 2013-14. And the numbers are there. We've increased by over $1 billion, K-12 state dollars, in education. With the exception of the first year, we've increased money for all the community colleges and for the university system. We believe that the priority was K-12 education. That's just about the only thing the state government that we didn't cut when we came in order to take care of that $2.5 billion budget deficit that was left us by irresponsible behavior in the past. We dealt with that, and we did that by allowing taxes to be lower. And we're in really good shape, and we're getting better.
Again, please. Rebuttal.
Well, when Senator Davis talks about money that's been spent since 2008, he needs to look at 2007, because that was higher than the graph that he's showing now. So there's been a time when the Democrats were putting even more money into place. But let's talk to you. I want to talk to you, community college students. Since 2008, your tuition has increased by 70%. I was checking on, this is federal, but I was checking on the rates for loans. Those have jumped this year to like 4.61% for an undergraduate. It's even higher for graduate students. It's higher if your parents are paying. So it's becoming much more difficult to get an education. However, you need to get that education because it's important. It's going to make a difference in your future. But let's talk again about what's happened with the budget. We're giving money to large corporations and thinking that that's going to help them. It's trickled down. It hasn't worked since the 80s. It's not going to happen, folks.
Yes, what my opponent fails to tell you is that in 2009 and 2010, North Carolina was the recipient of some federal stimulus to the tune of about $1.3 billion a year. I'm talking about state dollars. I'm not talking about total dollars. I only have authority over state dollars. We have increased state funding every year since we've been there. And she is right, they were spending more money before, but that was because of $1.3 billion per year for 2 years for a total of $2.6 billion. And what happened was the legislature, they thought, well, this is great to have all this money. They failed to make the cuts in other parts of the government so that when that money ran out, we would be able to have a balanced budget. That's one of the ways that we got a $2.5 billion budget deficit. So don't let them fool you. Do your own research. You have incredible resources. You can go to the internet and look. Right? You can go to the Department of Public Instruction, their budget, and find that we've increased the money.
Okay, thank you. We're going to question Joe, and Senator Davis, you go first.
Yes, sir. Hey, Joe.
Hello. In the last 5 years, the number of people entering state universities planning to become teachers has declined by over 17%. Do you view this as a problem, and if so, what can be done to change it?
Yes, I do think it's a problem, but it's not no worse in North Carolina than it is nationally. That's the thing that we see across the board throughout the whole nation. And I think that in North Carolina, we have now come, if you talk about teacher compensation, we have come from 48 to 32nd with our the latest budget gave teachers an average of a 7.2% raise, including their longevity. And some teachers, beginning teachers, went from $30,800 a year to $33,000 this year, $35,000 next year. And so we've come from 9th in the region to fourth. The only people that are in front of us are Kentucky, Georgia, and Louisiana, and I think Georgia is only about 5% ahead of us now. So we've come a long ways towards taking care of that pay gap in teacher salary. We're not where we want to be, but we have come a long ways. And if you want to talk about education funding, we can go back to 2005 when we ranked 46th in the country. And that was during that time. So I'll have that debate any day of the week.
Well, we are 46, folks. We're 46 in teacher pay right now. We're 48 in per pupil spending. Wallet Hub listed this as 51st in terms of the state for teacher opportunity, and that included Washington, D.C. Folks, we're not in good shape. Education is drastically underfunded. A lot of students are not going into education because they don't see a good future for them. Texas was here recruiting teachers because they could give them greater pay. So we're losing our teachers. We lost the Teaching Fellows Program, which took some of the best and the brightest from our high schools and gave them a college education with the commitment that they would teach for 4 years. And many of them have stayed into teaching and are our premier teachers across the state. The graduate programs are dropping because teachers are no longer paid for their master's pay. But let's talk about the children, because the children are the ones who are really losing. Because children there's not money there any longer to buy textbooks so that kids have a textbook they can take home with them and study. And that leaves the parents in limbo as to how they're going to help that child. So our schools are in trouble, and we've got to do something about it. And they did this while they gave cuts to millionaires and billionaires, and to large corporations, and to special interest groups. They funded these tax credits, these tax breaks on the backs of our children, on the backs of our future. And the children are the ones who are going to make the difference in the future. And we've got to provide education for them. We've got to provide a strong education for our children. It's imperative.
I agree. As a matter of fact, I believe so much in education that I'm very thankful to report to you that 37% of the state budget, 37% of every dollar that we spend in North Carolina goes to K-12 education. We spend a total of 56% on education. That's university and community colleges as well. We have a strong history of funding education in this state, and we are doing it responsibly. You know, I keep hearing about giving tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires. Folks, there are very few billionaires in North Carolina. Every income group in our tax reform package got a tax break. Every income. And we think that's responsible. We want to grow business so that we have more revenue, so we have the opportunity to spend more money on education programs that work. But first of all, we had a serious problem that we were dealing with in a budget deficit. We are correcting that. Things are looking better. And are we doing as much as we want to? If we want to have that conversation, I'll be glad to have that. Okay? But we're on our way. We're making progress.
I think this question was about education. And I want to tell you what the superintendent said about what's happening. And I called him. And Senator Davis, you ought to talk with him. One of them said it's a sham. Another one said what's happening to our schools is a shell game. Another one said it's an election year gimmick when they were talking about this so-called pay raise. Another one says it's a carrot on a stick. And I hesitated because, well, there's one here I'm not going to repeat. But our schools are suffering. And it wasn't a tax break that made sense. It's hurting our people. It's hurting our state. It's hurting you. It's hurting your future in terms of the education that you can get.
Thank you. Next question comes from Piano. Ms. Inky, go first.
A federal court recently ruled that same-sex marriage must be allowed in North Carolina. Do you think the state should accept the ruling, or should the state fight the decision in court?
Well, thank you for your question. There had been a law banning same-sex marriage for a while. And then there was Amendment 1 against same-sex marriage. It was already on the books. But it was voted on, and it passed. And the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, wrote that it was against the law to ban same-sex marriage. Some people took that to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the United States refused to listen to that and refused to change that decision. When I decided that I was going to run for the North Carolina State Senate, there was a ban on same-sex marriage. If I get into the Senate, it will be allowed. I'm going to support the Constitution of North Carolina as it's written. The things that I ran for are to improve education, to work on health care. Now I want to put a moratorium on fracking for this state, and I want to get jobs and economy going. That's what I'm going to work for. I have to pick my battles. And if I fought that one, it's already been decided. There's no way to win that. But I want to get education into good. I want the right thing for our children. And I don't want fracking in this state, big so.
Senator Davis, would you repeat the question? I didn't know fracking was in there.
A federal court recently ruled that same-sex marriage must be allowed in North Carolina. Do you think the state should accept the ruling, or should the state fight the decision in court?
Well, I think, matter of fact, I signed on to a letter with Senator Berger that is going to hopefully keep some magistrates from losing their jobs because they refuse to violate their principles in marrying same-sex couples. I don't believe there's any moral equivalent to a same-sex couple and a heterosexual loving couple. I don't think that's a heterosexual loving couple is the foundation of our society and of our of the population. And so I am very proud to have voted for that in the Senate. We got it onto the ballot. North Carolinians voted 62% in favor of recognizing only marriage as defined between one man and one woman. And again, I don't think there's any moral equivalent to any other union. If we allow same-sex, what's to keep us from marrying two people, or one of each, or where does that end? I don't know. I just think that there's no moral equivalent to having a loving husband and a wife in the same family. So I think that we're going to fight it, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually the states don't prevail because of Supreme Court ruling. So that's where I stand on. I'm very proud of it.
Well, the magistrate's job is a state job. And the magistrate's job is to support the Constitution. And I think if that's a moral problem for a magistrate, they need to find another job because they have a state job. That's exactly the way that I feel about it. As far as the vote on Amendment 1, about 34% of our people voted for that, and 61% did indeed vote for it, but it was a very low turnout. So that's the way that happened. But I will support the Constitution.
Thank you, rebuttal to that. Thank you. There was a recent poll saying that now it's 72% of North Carolinians polled reject the appeals court ruling that's saying that they're going to get rid of our marriage amendment. If you want to support the Constitution, this is an amendment to the state constitution in North Carolina, the marriage amendment. So how can you say you're going to support the Constitution and yet you're going to throw that out? I believe in the Constitution. I'm going to support it. I'm glad the amendment's there. But it appears as though support of this amendment, or the definition of marriage between a man and a woman, has gone up in North Carolina. And the fact that only so many people voted, well, I can't help that. Actually, it was on the primary ballot as a courtesy to the Democrats in the legislature. They're the ones that voted it on the primary. So if you want to blame anybody for a low turnout, you have to blame them.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. Sam? And Senator Davis, you go first.
According to a law is on the wrong track, do you see this as a problem? What can be done to improve this perception?
Yes. I think it's a problem. And we're trying to fix it. And like I said, when you look at every parameter of what we've done in the legislature, we have made progress. Our unemployment rate has come down. We have a balanced budget. We're spending money on increased funding on just about every component of state government. Our budget is going up. And with state dollars, we're making a big difference. In addition to that, we're getting rid of a lot of waste and stuff in state government to take care of those kind of problems. So, yeah, I think probably when you talk to people about goals, there's a lot of frustration in our state and our country today with how things are going. And probably spillover from what's going on in Washington has an effect here as well. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that it is a problem.
And I think there are problems in this state. Our schools certainly need fixing. Our hardworking people have not been taken care of. Their taxes have gone up. We're now paying 7% on electricity when we were paying 3%. If your car breaks down, you're now paying a tax on that service. You know, if you're wealthy, you probably get a new car every 2 years. But someone who doesn't have a lot of money, they have to drive it a while. They're going to have more car breakdowns than a person with more money. And there are other taxes there too. You're paying taxes on your food. If you have a college meal plan, probably you don't have it here, but they have it at Western. So there's increases all around. You pay more for your movie tickets because they've added a tax to that. But remember, your wealthy people, they got a break. Also, let's talk about employment. They say employment is going up. But think of all the people who no longer can get the unemployment benefits because the benefits have run out, so they're no longer on the rolls. But there are a lot of people here who do not have jobs. In Graham County, 22% of the people don't have jobs. For every job opening, there are 5 people wanting those jobs. So we've got a problem with employment. Another thing that's been cut is the earned income tax credit. And this was something that President Reagan saw as a way to help our poor families, to help people who are working, but they're low income because it gave them a tax break. They got that the last year. It won't be there in 2014. And that's going to take almost $2 million out of these 7 counties as it affects each one of the counties. So no, the state's not doing so well. And I want to do something about it. I want to go to Raleigh. I want to make a difference for the people. I want to have a much higher approval rate for the citizens of the state.
Yeah, if you want to talk about unemployment, we owed the federal government $2.8 billion. We borrowed money from the federal government to pay unemployment benefits. And that's because we have the most generous unemployment benefits in the Southeast, certainly more than any of our neighbors. People were moving here to get unemployment benefits. That's what was happening. So we lowered the unemployment benefits from about $550 a week to about $350 a week, the average for the people in our area. In addition to that, we increased the taxes, the unemployment taxes. You may not know this, but employees don't pay unemployment tax. Employers pay that. So we raised the taxes on employers to take care of that debt. $2.8 billion that we were left in unemployment, another debt that we were left. And as of October 1, that debt was below $600 million. And it will be paid off in full by the end of next year. And, hey, listen, we are now the average in unemployment benefits for our region. And I think that's good. When you make the unemployment benefits too generous, then people are not incentivized to get a job.
Please.
Well, it's my understanding that the reason we had problems with the unemployment insurance is because the regulations had changed and the businesses weren't paying as much for unemployment benefits. And then when the recession hit in 2008, there wasn't the money to pay the people who had lost their jobs. But we have about the lowest unemployment benefits in the United States. We're only offering 20 weeks now. We're at the bottom again, just like we are with water. I don't know how PC's doing, but it's a problem. We've got to get our state back together again.
Okay. Next question. Ms. Itchie.
The cost to clean up Duke Energy's coal ash ponds is estimated at between $2 million to $10 million. Do you think Duke Energy should be held responsible for those costs, or should they be passed along to their customers?
I've answered this question before. Duke Energy should pay. The people who own the stocks, the stockholders should pay for the cleanup of Duke Energy. It shouldn't be passed on to the rate holder. But you know, Governor McCrory, he worked for Duke Energy for a long, long time. And the coal ash spill has not been taken care of as it should be. It's still there. There's still pollutants in the Dam River. And there's no big hurry to get that cleaned up. And there are coal ash ponds all over this place. I listened to this question when it was asked to Representative Joe Samqueen. You know, he's an architect and he knows about building materials. He said this coal ash could be used to bake concrete. So why aren't they using it in some productive way rather than just letting it leach into our waters and create problems and health issues for our people? You know, if you go to Lowe's and you buy a board and you take that board home and you use that board, but Lowe's happens to do something irresponsible and say they pollute some of their area, are they going to ask you to pay more for that board? I don't think so. That's their responsibility. We need to learn to clean up our own mess. You know, I learned that in kindergarten. You clean up your own mess. Duke Energy ought to clean up their own mess.
Yeah, the coal ash pond, actually, they were exempted from DENA regulations in 2008 under the previous legislation. And so if you want to talk about cleaning up your own mess, you need to talk to your people that were there then. You know, the Republican legislature didn't do that. You know, we were left with a mess, and it is a mess. But I agree, and North Carolina is the first state to deal with this issue on a comprehensive basis. The first. And the Republican legislature set that cleanup effort in motion. And Ms. Hips is right, that it can be used for building materials and other construction, for roads, all kinds of things. Actually, there are other states that are willing to buy this stuff from us. But as far as who pays for it, that's going to be done, that's going to be determined by the Utilities Commission. You know, not the legislature, and certainly not us. The Utilities Commission has that responsibility to decide how that's going to be paid. And I have every confidence that they will do so and do it effectively.
Well, I think it's interesting. My opponent said that a previous legislature left this mess. But you know, you're in charge now. And you can make those changes. So why didn't you make responsible change? And if it's in charge of the Utilities Commission, I hope those people are going to be honest, and I hope they're going to look after us. I hope they're not in the pocket of Duke Energy's.
Yeah, I would love to respond to that. You're not listening. We are the first state. We are the first state to put in regulations to deal with coal ash ponds. The first one. It was done this last short session in the legislature. We've done that. We're cleaning up your mess. And I'm very proud of
You haven't done a good job.
Well, we're just getting...
Okay, we've had a chance to express ourselves. Let's go back to not doing so. Our next question comes from Lori. And Senator Davis, you go first.
Okay. Hey, Lori.
Over 80% of the people who earn minimum wage in North Carolina are adults over 20 years old. Do you think the minimum wage should be raised? And if so, by how much?
No, I don't think the minimum wage should be. I don't think the minimum wage should be dictated by the federal government. I think that ought to be between the individual and the business. And it is shown that if you raise the minimum wage, then people in entry-level jobs, like you young people looking for the first job, you're going to be cut out of the market. Business is not going to hire people at an exorbitant rate. They're going to go more to mechanized things at McDonald's and things like that. So entry-level jobs are not going to be so prevalent. So I think that the federal government should stay out of it and leave the minimum wage alone. That ought to be a contract between you and your employer. If you're willing to work for that money, and for what they're willing to pay you, then fine. If not, then find somebody that you think will pay you for what you would prefer.
Well, actually, I'm in favor of raising the minimum wage. I told you see some differences. Because I feel like that when people work 40 hours a week, that they should be able to have food and shelter for their families and clothing. And that's not happening now. It's taking two people to work, sometimes two jobs, to be able to provide the necessities of life, while other people have a grand and glorious life. I think we need a more equitable society. And I'm in favor of looking at minimum wage. Now, to what extent or what it should be, I'm not sure about that. But, minimum wage is set now by the federal government. And I think we need to look at that.
You rebuttal?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Go. Ms. Hibbs, you go first.
One-third of North Carolinians live in a rural area, but less than 2% of medical doctors practice in those rural regions. What policies would you enact to attract more doctors to rural communities, to the rural communities you represent?
Well, I think I need to let them know what a beautiful area that we have here. And some doctors come here just for that reason. But there are problems because the hospitals can't provide the specialties. And a lot of doctors specialize now. And that creates a problem. I was looking at something recently, though, and this would help with healthcare in this region. And this is being implemented by the veterans. And it's helping about 12% of all our veterans. And that's basically telehealth care in which people can get in touch with a doctor if they're in a rural community and that specialist isn't there. But I think we have great resources here. We need to attract doctors. I think if we get the Medicaid funds back into the state, medicine will be more lucrative. Our hospitals will be more stable. Our hospitals are suffering right now because they don't have access to Medicaid funds. A person without medical insurance now goes to the hospital. They leave a bill there that we all help to take care of. If we had the Medicaid insurance, we would pay for it once. Now we're paying for it twice. Our tax dollars are going back to Washington. They're not coming here. If someone's sick, they don't have the health insurance, they're indigent, then we're left with a second bill. So I think it's a complex issue, but I think we can get doctors here.
It is a complex issue. It's been going on for a long time. It didn't start. This was a problem before Medicaid even existed in our country. And to get physicians to come to a small rural area, you have to have a special person that wants to come and enjoy the area and is willing to be compensated at a lower rate. That's certainly what my wife and I did 40 years ago when we moved to Franklin. We knew that our income was not going to be so great here in the rural area, but it's the kind of place where we want to be and raise our family, and we're still here. We're glad for that. One of the biggest problems that we have in recruiting physicians is their spouse. The spouses want to go to a larger area in many cases, and so it not only takes a physician, whichever their sex is, to be able to come to an area like this, a remote area, but you have to have the spouse willing to do that as well. So there are a lot of things that we have to do, but and maybe telemedicine, and maybe technology is going to help us to address this problem. But it's been a problem for a long time, and I don't anticipate that it's going to be resolved anytime in the near future. But we need to keep working on it every day.
Andrew Butler?
No problem.
Okay. Move on to our next question. Senator Davis, you go first.
Thank you.
A Superior Court judge ruled in August that using public money for tuition at private and religious schools violates the North Carolina Constitution. Do you believe the state should accept this decision or use public money to fight it in court?
Actually, that decision is on hold right now for this particular year. You're talking about opportunity scholarships. And you have to remember that opportunity scholarships were offered to lower income students in our state. I think the total amount that they would get is about $4,200, which is around $3,500 less than what the ADM money going to every school. And so really for these particular students, it's a better deal for the for the state because they're not spending out all that money to take advantage of these opportunity scholarships. But I don't understand the big problem with that. We've been doing that with the GI Bill for forever, since World War II when it was started. You were able to take your benefit from federal dollars, from government money, and be able to use it at the university of your choice. And so I'm a strong proponent of choice in our education, regardless of what level it is. And this particular decision is on hold for this year, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens as it winds its way through our legal system.
Well, as part of the North Carolina State Constitution, that we provide quality education for our children. When we provide money for private schools through vouchers, we don't know what those schools are all about. There's no accountability standards. We don't know what the students are learning. And one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to train our people, our children, for a global economy. And it's putting us on a weak standing not to know what the children are getting. So I'm not in favor of the voucher system. Our state money doesn't need to go that way.
No, just that they are held accountable because they have to take tests. And some private schools, some charter schools do better than public schools, and some do worse. And so we have a broad range of those. Some schools are better than others. That's just the way it is. It's largely dependent upon the quality of the teacher. We found that out. The quality of the teacher that's in the classroom best determines how those students are going to do. But they are held to standards, to quality standards, and testing shows that some of them do extremely well, some of them do not so well, just like a regular public school.
Well, I think when you look at test scores and you look at how well schools are doing, to me, I always look at that column too of free and reduced lunch. And that's how they're dealing with the children in poverty and how they're achieving. And we do need accountability standards. There's more to a curriculum than just a test. There's the SACS committee, the school standard, where we look at the standards for colleges and public schools. And that's a rigorous process. These private schools may not have that. Some of them are accredited, but the majority of them are not. We do need high standards of accountability.
Thank you. Question? Ms. Zipps, you go first.
Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. are voting this November whether to legalize marijuana. What is your opinion about this issue with regards to North Carolina?
When I realized I was coming to a community college, and was going to be asked questions by young people, I thought this question would come up. When I retired from public school education, I had a senior moment, I guess. I went to nursing school and became a pediatric nurse practitioner. And so I looked at the use of marijuana from a medical perspective. As far as the use of medical marijuana, I have no problems with that. I do have problems, though, with it being just available to everybody and legalized. At this point, that's the way I see it. That's the way I feel about it.
Yes, I agree with medical marijuana. As a matter of fact, during the short session, we passed legislation to allow medical marijuana to be used, cannabinoids to be used in North Carolina. It has to go through one of our 4 teaching hospitals in order to be used there, and you have to have a physician prescribe that. As far as legalizing marijuana, you know, I'm almost 68 years old. I was in college when marijuana started coming through, and I chose never to participate in that. I figured I never had any brain cells to spare. So I chose not to do that, and I just think it's very foolish. One good thing about our country is we're going to be able to look at Washington and Alaska and see what they're going to have to be dealing with these issues. I'm not going to vote for it. I would never vote for it there. And I'll tell you one big reason why I wouldn't. I've never talked to one law enforcement person that says it's a good idea. They say it's a gateway drug, and we have a serious problem with prescription drug and illegal drug use in our area.
Any follow-up?
No.
Senator
Over 1 in 4 children in North Carolina are not sure where their next meal is coming from and suffer from food insecurity. What is your opinion about this topic?
I think that's one of those problems that we're dealing with in our schools is we have free and reduced lunch for breakfast and lunch. We even send bag lunches to some of these kids to their, for the weekend. And so I feel empathetic, sympathetic to those young people that are not fed properly. We're doing a lot in the state with food stamps and with free and reduced lunch in school. It's a tragedy that for one reason or another their parents aren't providing the proper nourishment for them. But unfortunately, the government has to step in sometimes because in spite of what adults may be doing, it's not fair to hold these kids accountable for that. So we need to take care of it.
Yes, when you said 25%, I think. In Jackson County right now, 29.7% of our children are living in poverty. So in some places, it's even greater than 25%. I think some of the reasons that we're having to deal with this goes back to the tax reform. Our families don't have as much money as they used to. The money doesn't go as far as it used to because of inflation. The earned income tax credit has been taken away. So mothers and hardworking families don't have the money that they used to have. And it will be worse this year because there's going to be $1,890,770 estimated dollars less in this region than it was last year because of the earned income tax credit alone. Also, we need to boost jobs. We would have more jobs if we had medical insurance. And we need the medical insurance to have healthy families. There would be fewer doctor bills and healthier people. And parents would, if they're healthier, they'll be able to take care of their children, feed their children. It's a complex problem, but we have to take care of it. And I'm willing to help fight that problem. It's a problem for all of us.
Yeah, I would like to say that's not just food that we have to do. We have to teach these people how to eat better. I was on when I was a county commissioner for all 10 years that I was there. I was the liaison to the health department, and year after year we do a study on the population, and 40% of our middle school kids, 40% are obese or at risk. And so it's not just a quantity of food problem. We need to have a better educational process so that we can teach people how to eat better. And so I don't understand how we can have 25% of our young people going without proper enough food. They may be undernourished, but with all the benefit programs that we have in our state, funded by state, federal, and local governments, I don't know that that's an accurate number, but it may be. If the kids are suffering, it's a tragedy.
Well, I don't have much of a rebuttal, but I want to say that it's hard for people sometimes to have adequate diets because good food costs more. And that's a problem. And good, healthy, nourishing food is not always available to poor families.
Thank you. Well, our last question from Gabrielle. Ms. Zips, you go first.
How do your professional qualifications apply to this job for which you seek election?
Well, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is education. And I have 38 years in public school education. I've served as a counselor. I'm still a certified teacher, by the way. I'm certified as a counselor. I'm certified in gifted education. I'm certified in science education. And I've worked at the Western Regional Education Center, which was part of the State Department of Public Instruction. So I feel very adequately prepared to deal with education. I also ran a consulting business in math and science education and taught in 35 schools, so I know what it's like to try to run a budget and run a business. I also still have a farm, so I feel like that I'm prepared for agricultural issues. As I said before, I went back to school. I have a degree in nursing I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I feel prepared for medical issues. So I feel very well prepared through my background and through my education to go to Raleigh and support our people and work on the issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I've graduated in 1974 from dental school, and I've been practicing dentistry except in 2 years when I returned to school for a graduate degree in orthodontics. So for the last 40 years, I've been a private business owner. And when you're a private business owner, you have to be very responsive to your balance sheet, what comes in and what goes out. And so unless you want to be a nonprofit, and I guess any business can be a nonprofit if you work at it, but I chose not to be a nonprofit. And I believe that the government, that my personal business experience has served me very well in government. In addition to that, I was, as I said earlier, I was a county commissioner for 10 years in Lincoln County. 10 years. And during that time, I was having to deal with the county budget. And we had to be sure that we balanced our budget. As a matter of fact, the state requires that a county has a balanced budget, and if they don't, then the state will come in and take care of it. And so I feel extremely qualified, and I've been in the healthcare field for the whole 40 years, and so I'm very attuned. I believe that my experience in the healthcare field and being a private business owner and being educated as well gives me an insights into education. And I was on the school subcommittee in Macon County during several of those years there, so I feel like I have a broad range of experience. I have a record of getting things done both in local government and state government. And so I have something that you can look at. If you want to look it up on the internet and be able to see what I've been able to accomplish in my public life. I'm very proud of that. So I feel I'm very qualified, and I've been there, done it.
Ms. Ziff, anything you want to add to your answer?
No, sir.
Well, then we'll have our closing statements. And my prior agreements under Davis, you go first, and you go second.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank SCC for having us here. It's been a privilege, and to be able to contrast our views of what North Carolina should look like in the future. I want to tell you that this election is not about Ms. Hibb. It's not about me. It's about you and the North Carolina that you're going to inherit from the Romans. As I told you before, I believe that we need to fund the legitimate functions of government, and we need to fund them adequately. We are on our way to doing that. We're not there yet because we had to deal with a severe budget shortfall of the late 2000s, and we inherited the budget deficit, but we're no longer there. In addition to that, we have really fired up our pension plan, so now our pension plan was good, and now it's even better. We have an unfunded liability for retiree health care, and that has come down by a third. Every benchmark that we have in spending and North Carolina government is better now than it was 4 years ago when we took over. And the reason for that is my wife and I have 2 sons. We have 2 grandmothers, and they live in the front. And I am working hard so that they inherit a better state than I do. We are very blessed in North Carolina to live here in this area. And I think it's important that you inherit a state that's better, and you don't inherit a legacy of debt. And debt can kill, it's going to kill our federal government if we don't get it under control, and it has the potential to do that in the state. So long as we can fund adequately the legitimate functions of government, I told you public education is number 1, 56%. We also have public health and public safety are the big components of our state budget. And so long as we do those adequately, and we do that within our means, and our economy is growing, which it is, largely because I believe, because of the changes that we've made in our budget reform and our regulatory reform, and things are going to get better, and you're going to get a beneficiary of it. Thank you.
Is it?
Well, folks, I believe that we're at a crossroads, and we have to decide whether we want an equitable state or whether we want a two-tiered state of the rich and the poor. And as time goes by, that widening is continuing. That gap is building. If we continue with this process of tax reform, that gap is going to get wider. And I think we need a state that is standing for all of our people, that is standing for strong educations for our children, that's not taking away the strong university system that we've had, that we are honored for by the United States. We're losing ground in this state, and we've got to come forward and we've got to take care of it. You've got to decide whether you want a state that's going to be fracked. That may be already here, but I want to do the best I can to put the moratorium back on fracking, to save our environment, to save our drinking water, to save our air quality, to help in terms of people not getting sick. They can say all they want to, but the research is here showing that there are problems. So those are the things that I want to do. I want to take care of us. I want to have the state that we can be proud of, that the rest of the United States can look up to and say, look what they did. They were having problems, but they overcame that. They overcame being a state for sale that had been bought by the Koch brothers, that had been well supported by our Pope. And we want to be our own state. We want to be our own people. I want to put integrity into our government. And that's where I want to be. I want to respect our constituents. I will be a person that you can talk with. I will be accessible to you here in this district and also in Raleigh. I will respect you. And I want to go there. I can see how I can make North Carolina better. I can make it better for our children and our elderly people as well, across the continuum.
I want to thank the candidates for appearing here tonight, and remind you all to vote if you haven't done so already. And we do have light refreshments. Please feel free to help yourselves on your way out. Thank you.